and do our little riff?
Yeah, we are recording.
All right. So I am so sorry for hijacking your adorable Facebook. You posted that whole Facebook post on the 50 things about self-confidence. And I took us on this big left turn and finally like, Dianna, you're a goober. And I'm like, oh, shoot.
No. I mean, I love goobers. I called you goober. It was a term of endearment.
I know, but it was like, that was such a great article. But it was just too funny. That whole, like, it was just so funny. People aren't thinking about you. Have you heard that quote? I'm not much, but I'm all I think about.
No. No, I haven't.
Good thing to keep in mind when you're dealing with your customers.
Yeah.
You know, like that cold call where they hung up on you 5 minutes ago, you're still worried about it. They have moved on.
You know what? That needs to be a challenge. It needs to be a challenge. Like, get hung up on and call back a week later and see if they remember you.
Yeah, Jeb Blunt says he does that all the time.
Yeah, they don't. Well, you know, good and bad, you have the chance to learn from, you know, that experience and do it better, right? Right. And people have as we learned in the last episode, people have the intention of less than a goldfish. So it's not about you. Anyway, anything exciting happening this week? I don't even know. I'm so ready for school to be out. Every day, it's the new paper. Like, they love to kill trees at school. They do.
They're still killing trees.
Remember this. We get papers, texts, and emails all in the same day of crap you have to remember. So I push back. I tell my kids, if it's important to you, then you need to remember it. You need to remember, or you need to tell mom to put in her calendar. If it's important to you, you need to make it a priority. If it's important to your grade, you need to make a priority. But I can't hold all this stuff together. I just can't.
I don't know how you do it at all. I mean, I can't keep all of mine together. I can't imagine having other humans that I needed to keep their things together for them.
Yeah. I don't know.
Get them a Franklin planner on eBay.
Exactly. Jake learned. He'll tell me, Mom, did you put that in the calendar? I mean, he's 7 and he knows if he comes home with something that needs to be remembered, put it in the calendar. I'll put, this morning, put sunscreen on your kid, put them in their class shirt, send a towel. I put all that stuff in my calendar so that I don't forget. Because if it's, and then you throw the paper away. Like that's a sales hack too. If it's, put everything in your calendar. So if it's important, you don't have to hold it in your brain. You save brain space for really important things.
Well, we touched on this a little bit with travel hacks, but one of my travel hacks is I write down a list of everything that needs to get done the day that I get back. So like right now, as soon as we finish recording, I'll just go down and there'll be a list. I don't have to think, do you know how long it takes to get those gears going? Like where was I before I left and what needs to get done? I'm just going to hit the ground running. There's a list. It's brilliant. Yeah.
That's great. All right. Well, let's kick it off.
Okay. Well, here we go. So welcome everyone to the SellOut Show, where we are always sold out. I am Dianna Geairn, and I am the irreverent sales girl, where my mission is to bring a dash of dignity to the art of selling.
Hi, Dianna. Hi, everyone. I'm Shawn Sandy. I'm the Chief Revenue Officer of the Selling Agency, where we coach humans how to sell to other humans. Because if you're one of those sellers who shows up and feature vomits, it's equivalent of the monkeys at the zoo throwing their poo at people.
No feature poo slinging, please. Oh my God. That's a visual I won't soon forget.
Yeah. Think about it. The term feature vomit or, show up and throw up. And, that's like, that's people don't want that. They don't want you to just go and everything on them. Selling is an experience and an exchange. It's not a one way, they're not slinging your stuff.
Slinging your stuff.
Yes.
All right. So I know you have a super special topic that we're going to talk about today. What is our mystery topic?
Okay. Well, there's a reason I brought up monkeys. Okay.
Oh.
I want to talk about a concept called the Monkeysphere.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, I know. I've touched on this a little bit before. So the Monkeysphere, I use this to coach sellers and to talk about just how critical relationship selling is. And that's a stupid term, honestly, relationship selling. We have to build relationships. But, you know, as salespeople, we're ingrained to do more, sell more, hit your quota, close a deal. And we remove the humanness from our customers, right? It's all about us and the close and the quota and, you know, but in order to get back to our customers as real people, I read this article. My husband actually shared this with me because have you ever read cracked.com? Or
no.
Okay. These people are funny.
Oh, Cracked. Oh, yeah. We need to get on Cracked somehow. Yeah, absolutely.
Not on crack.
Not on crack.
We don't need to get on crack.
We're already on heroin, so we got that base covered. But yeah, no, cracked.com is my husband. I think he's read every article. It's amazing.
Yeah. Well, I'll have to share out this link. So my husband shared this with me. And so they wrote this back in 2007. And when I read this, I went, oh my gosh, that fits so perfectly with why we have to build relationships in sales. So they called this term the Monkeysphere. It's really, it's research based from the 1990s, a man named Robert Dunbar. And it's originally called Dunbar's number, but they called it the Monkeysphere. And the concept here is that they studied primates and they said, you know, primates can only hold a certain number of people in their group, and then everything else is not really like, you know, not really, it doesn't matter, right? So the number that they've extrapolated this for humans is that we can only really maintain 150 relationships at any given point in time. So real people that matter, real people with souls and personalities, everything outside that number is kind of like a two-dimensional character, you know? So for instance, I'm going to, I had a friend here, she passed away from cancer recently, and she's got 2 children and a husband. She battled colon cancer for, I think, 7 years, and it just broke my heart. Now, she's in my Monkeysphere, and then yet we have the tragedy of children dying in Serbia and thousands of people dying in bombs. I don't cry about that every night. I mean, I'm not a cold, heartless person. They're just one-dimensional, bit characters in my life experience, whereas this person, I knew her personally. So the idea behind the Monkeysphere is that you have to build relationships with people. And if you only have 150 people in your Monkeysphere, in order for you to build a relationship with someone, you have to displace someone in their Monkeysphere. Ideally, that's another vendor. That's someone they're buying from currently. You have to work harder to be more than that, one-dimensional character and actually mean something to them in order to build a relationship with them.
Wow. But you don't have to kill them off. They don't.
No. People ebb and flow in your Monkeysphere. Think about, Facebook, for instance. Now, I'm not really aggressive on my connections. I have like about 500 connections on Facebook. Do I have a relationship with all those people? No. There are some people who are not even in my physical proximity that I have a relationship with. People I went to high school who live 600 miles away now, or people around the world. I can have a relationship with them and they are in my Monkeysphere, but there's people in my town that I don't. So social media has really changed all that, but it's so important to understand that in relationship building, that you actually have to matter to someone, and you have to, that in order for them to matter to you.
Wow. So how do you put that into practice of, now that you've got this concept of Monkeysphere, is it like roller derby and you got to like knock the other guy out so now you're in, or like how do you put that into practice when you're developing your relationships?
Well, that starts the idea that people are real humans, right? That you have to instead of numbers and, prospects on a target list and all that kind of stuff, you have to actually take those numbers. Yeah, I'm a numbers gal. I understand that you have to have, so many calls to get to, but you have to put a human person in those seats. You have to speak in their current seat and be able to speak to that one person in order to really matter to them.
Yeah.
That's where getting back to this idea of selling to humans is so important. Instead of just thinking, well, I have, 75 people on my prospect list. Okay. All 75 of those people don't matter to you. And if you're one of 10 people calling on a customer, you need to matter more than those other 10 people. You need to displace them out of the Monkeysphere. So then you need to decide, how am I going to build a relationship? Okay, great. We've got our first contact. How many times is it, Dianna, that we get emails, calls? Is someone really trying to make a difference and matter to me? You go back to when we talked to Jack Kosakowski, and we'll have to figure out which video this is in. He said, let people into your life.
Yeah.
He said, I thought this was brilliant. And this is where the Monkeysphere started coming back into, I want to have this conversation. He said, Facebook isn't taboo to connect with your customers anymore, because we want to let people into our life. And that's what it's about, is building real relationships. I have children. You may hear a thing or two about my kids, right? You have dogs. We travel. Our customers have children. They have aging parents. They have all these different things that those are opportunities to build bridges, to build real relationships. It's not just about the product or service. That they can get products or service from anyone. You have to actually build real relationships. It can't be fake, because if it's fake, it doesn't matter. I can displace Bob the vendor. I don't care about Bob the vendor, but Dianna, who I know she loves her labs. And when I go into the pet store, she told me about this great thing I'm going to give to my dogs and that kind of stuff. Dianna matters. It's a lot harder to replace Dianna than it is Bob the vendor, Bob who doesn't matter.
It's so true. And that was an eye opener. There were some major eye openers in that Jack Kosakowski piece, which is, by the way, episode 1. How do you turn your life into, what is it, like a rock star career at 35 if you're 25 now, right? Like, how do you use the next 10 years to never pick up the phone again and sell to anybody? So that's episode 1. Go watch it, because by the time we publish this, it'll be up. Brilliant. That was, he nailed some really great stuff.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So how do you matter? And I think you're right. I think that, doing a little bit of research, but then, I also think that kind of throwing away your assumptions then, right? So because, we look at somebody's, I was just reading about this, and I know it's true, but we look at people as if they have our same filters.
Yes, exactly.
And, so I think you have to be aware of that. I mean, it's not going to change. You can't throw that away, but people, the way they behave normally is not necessarily the way you behave normally. And the way they see the world is, very different from the way you see the world. And you can make some assumptions off of what you see on LinkedIn or social or whatever, but then, let them kind of open up and blossom in front of you in the relationship as you're having it. And I think the first way to do that, like Jack said, and you just mentioned, is, let them in.
Yeah. Well, I think there was a point in time where both buyers and sellers went to, okay, well, we have to prove the statistics. So it's all about the numbers, and, we're evaluating decisions and taking the emotions out of it. Well, that may be true. You're using decision criteria. Maybe you have a matrix or rubric for how you make decisions, but they're human beings making the decisions. Yeah. And if they don't like you, if you don't matter to them, if you've not found a way to matter to them, then it's a lot easier to make a decision that doesn't have that human influence. So, how do you warm up people and get to be able to matter to them? How do you get into someone's Monkeysphere? I'm curious to know what your techniques would be, or your skills that you use here.
Well, I mean, we talk about this a lot, and I've actually, some of the feedback that I get from people about what it's like to interact with me, and I think it takes, I think you really are smart if you start, it takes a tremendous amount of courage, and probably nobody who's watching this even wants to do this exercise, but I have done this exercise in the past where I interview people about what's it like to engage with me.
Really?
And it has a particular kind of sequence, like, it's kind of like, I just want to get some feedback from you. Would you be willing to share some with me? And most people are very willing. Sure. You say, what do you rely on me for? When you think of me, like when you think of you need something and it turns out that it's Dianna that you need it for, like, what do you rely on me for? Mm-hmm. And it could be, they rely on you to be the one that's going to, be the one that coaches the volleyball team, or it's going to be the one that's going to bring the care. Like, I'm just never, ever going to be the one that like watches your children. Like, ever. And so, so anyway, but it's really interesting because a very good friend of mine who I probably shouldn't drop big names, but she's a big name. She's like, I used to think that people came to me for, you know, really great selling advice, but what they came to me for was I would settle them down before a sales call. But she didn't know that until she did the survey. So that's the first question. The second question is, you know, what are, you know, 1 or 2 words that you would describe about me? And then they tell you, which were surprising too. The third question is the scariest.
Well, what were they? What were they?
Oh, well, mine is infectious. They're like, you're infectious.
Yeah, I can see that.
And I don't think they meant like contagious, like, you know, diseased. But I could get it. You know, it means a lot to me that people find me irresistible, and not so that I get that, but I just don't need to I don't need to accidentally spend somebody else's time either. Do you know what I mean? Like, you're not going to matter to everybody.
No.
And if you approach every relationship, especially every selling relationship, where you're committed, but you could walk away and it'd be no problem, then you start to develop these real human interactions, I think. Because that's human to say, you know, Shawn, you look like somebody to me that might be interested in what I have to say. But if you're not, peace out, no problem. You know, you got bigger fish to fry. I got bigger fish to fry. There are plenty of fish, you know, Misty, that kind of thing. But then the hardest question to ask is, what does everybody know about me that never tells me?
Oh, what was the answer to that one?
Well, I don't know if I want to talk. No, the one thing that the one thing Carol Roth said this to me. I don't know if you know Carol Roth. She's pretty amazing. She goes, the one thing that people know about you, but they don't tell you, is that it's ridiculous how insecure you are and how much you don't promote yourself.
I would love for you to create like a card of, you know, the, you know, seller's personal insights into you or whatever, that again, would give you something like you send us an email or something and download it so that people can do this exercise. I'm curious. I do get some feedback. I've pulled feedback like teeth sometimes to get feedback. And I learned a long time ago that a lot of people are scared of me, that they're intimidated or scared, you know, come on really strong. And, you know, that's why I have Selena, because those aren't my people. I mean, they follow me, but they won't interact with me. Right.
Right.
But you have to know these things about yourself so that if you are approaching a buyer and you want them to need you, and you want you to matter to them, you need to understand these things about yourself too. Who said, in order to be interesting, you need to be interested? You know, you need to show
that's a good one
in them, right? And that's all about being in someone's Monkeysphere. It's about showing them that you are interested in, you know, hey, personal stuff aside, you don't need to get up all in someone's business. Like you know, what's a nosy pepper do? He gets jalapeno business.
Oh my God.
I know.
Hold on. I got to write this down.
But, you know, it's not about getting all in someone's business. It's about understanding that there are personal filters that are brought into conversations, that are into decisions. You know, someone might be thinking about their sick friend, their sick cat, or a promotion, and all this kind of stuff. That stuff goes into the way people think about you and their decisions. And, you know, mattering to someone and getting into their Monkeysphere is the best way to make sure that those personal filters, that you understand them, and that you can make sure that how you talk to someone, position your product, your value, and your services is in context to how they think about you, your product, your services, the outcomes, the risk, the budget, all that stuff. You don't know if you're just sitting there reading a brochure about your services and all that crap. You don't know.
No.
You have to get to know people on a personal level. You just cannot get around it.
So Dunbar's number is 150.
Mm-hmm.
And do you know how they even came up with this number? I've got to go read this Kraft article, but do you know how they came up with this number?
I think they studied primates and then they cut their brains open. Pretty sure. No, I studied monkeys. I think monkeys, their number.
I'd prefer to keep mine intact for a little bit longer.
Well, they studied monkeys and, you know, primate civilizations. I know monkeys and primates are not necessarily the same thing. Like my 6-year-old told me that when I wrote this, but just stick with me here. So they studied them and the way their communities enacted, and how people outside the community didn't matter or whatever. And then they looked at the size of a monkey's brain and they extrapolated that to humans to figure humans could maintain. And this is about maintaining and interacting with and engaging with about 150 people at any given point in time. So
do you feel like it's different for different people? I mean, do you feel like it's different for different people? For me, I feel like some of my friends have a much higher capacity to hold. I hold a very intimate group of people and I'm deeply engaged with them. But do you feel like it's different for different people, or?
I think so. I think that could have some of the extrovert introvert ties, and how many people like you have a Monkeysphere, but maybe you have an inner monkey circle.
Well, okay. So that leads me to a tactical LinkedIn question.
Okay.
So how do you manage your first circle? So I get a lot of invitations in my LinkedIn. Well, not even invitations, just like a connection request. And I've kind of always looked at my LinkedIn like, if you go to my LinkedIn and I'm a first connection with them, then I'm going to be able to make an introduction. Like I know who they are. And do you know what I mean? Like I'm going to be able to make an introduction. And then there's some people that get in and they tell me why they want to connect. Right. And I'm like, that's kind of cool. And I almost always say yes, even if I don't know them. But then I ask them, is there something that we can do together? But then how do you do this? I mean, what do you do with these connections that you don't know where they came from and you don't know why they want to connect and they didn't take the time to write you a note? I mean, do you build your network that way? Is it like gathering people, or how do you work that?
I think it's different for different people. For instance, I get connection requests from people who have probably seen me or read something or whatever. And because so much of my selling mix is about my content and content push and people following up with me. I mean, being magnetic through your content. I know that, probably 50% of my connections are people who found me through my content and wanted more. So I do accept those connections, right? But then I have a core group of people that I interact with, and I have a core target list of people that I want as customers. My small business customers mostly follow me through my email and LinkedIn. So it's just different. You have to work LinkedIn. You have to have a strategy for it. And that's my strategy. Twitter, I engage mostly with my peers on Twitter. A lot of small business owners, they're Twitter lurkers. They don't know how to use Twitter, or they're not really active on Twitter. So while I'm there and I'm visible, it's about engaging and learning from my peers and building my peer network there so I can learn harder for my customers. And so, it's going to be different, but you have to understand the channel and how you use that channel, but most importantly, how your customers use the channels that they're in if you're going to be social in order to be able to build those relationships. I think there's no one way.
Yeah. I was sort of looking for the right way, but yeah, I'm still kind of in a quandary about it, but because I just really do want somebody, if they like Shawn, if you were in a selling situation and you needed to get an introduction into a company and you saw that I was a first connection with them, I'd want you to be able to say, hey, Dianna, can you hook me up? And maybe like, oh yeah, I know that person, actually I had a reason to be connected with them. So anyway, I guess it is personal preference. And I think I probably have to, I've learned a lot about being in social media that you really kind of have to change your mind sometimes about, the way I manage my personal life and who I go to dinner with can be that. But if you're trying to accomplish certain things on social, then maybe it's time to, have a different way of thinking about it.
Well, I will give you a hint. I will tell you what I do. I don't ask for people for connections via LinkedIn. I will look for someone who is connected to someone that I want to talk to, and I will ask that connection to have a conversation so that I understand. I mean, I think so oftentimes people say, hey, will you connect me? And then let's just be honest. How often do those work? When someone says, hey, can you introduce me on LinkedIn? Oh, here's an introduction. It falls flat. I honestly think it probably does not go as many places as people say it's going to go. So I'll say, hey, can we have a conversation? I see you're connected to so-and-so. I want to get to know you a little bit better before I ask this favor of you. That works like a charm.
Sorry, I wasn't moving around enough. My motion detector doesn't know I'm in the office. Turn the lights on, please.
Oh, that's hilarious.
This is what it's like to live with an engineer.
Oh, yeah, I see that. Yeah. So
So I'm sorry, I interrupted you.
No, that's okay. That's okay. That was fun. That was like, woo. Okay. So I'll call someone and get to know them a little better, because honestly, again, how often do you know, how really well do you know everyone you're connected to on LinkedIn? I'll get to know them a little bit better to see do they truly have a relationship with this person? But I have to strengthen that relationship first and matter to that person before I ask them if I can get an introduction so that I can find someone else that I matter to. Otherwise, it's like, hey, can I step on you to get over there?
Right. That's so good.
I look to take that relationship offline first, because if they really know that company, I want to know what's the culture like, and who is the person I really need to get to. Are they receptive? Do you know who they're using? I mean, and then I've actually really developed some great relationships with people I just had this really surface level relationship with, but I asked them to get to know them better first because I know that they are connected to this person. And I've never had anyone say no, honestly. But then I do, you strengthen that relationship too. And then you matter to that person. And also now they're looking for someone that I'm looking for, right? They know the kind of people that I want to meet. They feel valuable. They feel like they matter to me.
That's good. That is an excellent use of the Monkeysphere. That's really good. Yeah. And you don't know, I think you gotta be cautious with LinkedIn with the first connections. Like I met this guy at the airport yesterday he's a speaking, influencer in the information technology world. Anyway, really interesting guy. He wants to get a TV show. He's pitching a TV show to be on after Mad Money and talk about information security, which actually he could probably do it and be really fun. So I'm like, oh, let me connect to, no business cards anymore. I'm like, well, let me just pull up LinkedIn and I'll connect with you there. It turns out we have one connection whose name I'm not going to mention, but one woman who's a connection.
Right.
And I was like, oh, how do you know this person? And he's like, oh yeah, blah, blah, blah. I don't know. He gave me something, right? And then so we're messaging back and forth on LinkedIn, because he had to get a plane, and we still needed to finish like the interaction. And he's like, well, truth be told, I dated her for a while. Like,
oh, okay.
And so that might not be like the best way to get connected, because if they're not dating anymore, then,
Well, it is. It's a cautionary tale. And this is why this another reason why I say you need to understand the relationship of the person to the person you want to be connected to.
Yes.
If you are asking this person to introduce you, you are forever connected to them, their baggage, and their experiences to that person. I think I've told this story in the show before. I almost didn't get a job interview because the person that recommended me to her boss couldn't freaking stand her. Oh. They thought, oh, great. If this person's just like her, I know I don't want another person like her on my team. She had no clue. She had no clue. He told me that years later. He's like, I didn't even want to give you an interview. I went to that interview so I walked in there with her baggage, with crap all over me, essentially.
Her baggage was on your plane.
Exactly. And so that's another reason why before I ask someone for an introduction, I will call them and to ask to talk to them offline about, what do you really know? It's like, I don't really know this person. Okay, great. Well, let me get to know you better, because, and they're not going to say no, but then it's a win-win. And it's, again, another way for you to expand your network and to matter to people, to be in their Monkeysphere. Because if you think about it, it's like a circle with marbles in it. You got to knock someone out. In order to matter to someone, you have to knock someone out. Now, it could be their Aunt Ida from Idaho, who they don't ever really talk to. She just, every Christmas she sends a fruitcake or something like that. That's their only relationship with Aunt Ida. But they see you now, they hear from you, they see you, you guys talk about golf, or you can take them to lunch or whatever, you're making your way into their Monkeysphere. You matter.
It's so Darwinian.
It is. It really is. I mean, it makes
Start reading the obituaries. Find out. Who's out?
Yeah. Well, but it's human. It's only human to think that we cannot maintain. Do you think that if that your customers have personal relationships and care about every single one of their vendors? The answer is yes and no. Some do, some don't. How can it benefit you if you're the one that they care about, right? And they don't care about, the other person. So this article goes on to explain, there's a kid, and his dad was taking a broken bottle, and he was wrapping up the glass and paper He said, Dad, why are you doing that? Well, because I don't want the garbage man to cut his hand. And so the kid's like, well, it's just the garbage man. The garbage man was not in this kid's Monkeysphere, but his dad's, still out there and talking to the garbage man. He sees him every week. He's in his Monkeysphere. So whereas, the garbage just magically disappears on a weekly basis for the kid, the dad knows Carl. I like to give people names in case you knows. The dad knows Carl. Carl's got 2 kids. Carl was in, Iraq, and, that's just the difference. He matters. And so he's going to take extra precaution because he matters to him. Whereas the kid's like, hey, he's a garbage man, whatever. So you've got to work your way into someone's Monkeysphere, build true relationships that matter. It is really critical for sellers to understand that people make the decisions, and that's at the heart of what we do. You have to have real relationships. It's not just about your product or services. Then you're a commodity.
Yeah, well, I'm going to say something that's super warmed over porridge, but we'll have to counteract it with something else in a minute. But it really is that people make decisions on emotions and they back it up with the data.
Yeah.
And you got to have the emotion behind it first. And, the one thing that really surprised me when I was a little girl growing up, I think I learned this for reals when I was probably, 28, was that men have feelings. Do you know that I really didn't have any idea that men had feelings? Really,
okay.
And it's no testament to my father either. It's just, these boys just always seemed so mean and unfeeling, and they were the ones I wanted to hang out with the most. But what I learned was he who cares the least wins. Do you know what I mean? So
that was your overriding paradigm.
Yeah, we're having a breakthrough, moment here, but yeah. So when I started realizing, men actually are emotionally driven as well. It's, that can skyrocket your sales, but it's anecdotes. I think this is the way that attorneys win huge awards for their victims, like in an insurance prosecution or whatever, is because they make that person human. They put them into the Monkeysphere. This is really so cool. Make yourself a human to that person. This is so cool.
Yeah. Well, and so I think I learned this from different sources, but I think Simon Sinek talks about this when he does this golden circle exercise. But so as humans, we still make decisions with our primitive brain. The Homo sapien brain does not actually, that's not where we make decisions, but that's where we process language and we're able to rationalize and analyze. But our decision-making control center is still essentially our gut. We don't process language, facts, figures, and numbers in our primitive brain, but that is where we make decisions from. So what does that tell you?
I don't know. my mind right now is so blown. Do you know what I mean? I'm like, I got to go study neuroscience. What does that mean?
Well, it means that, it's like what you said, we make decisions with our gut and with our emotions first, and then we rationalize afterwards. So it's one of the reasons why the buyer circle, what's the word I'm looking for? The buying team. What's the word I'm looking for?
Oh, buyer's table?
Well,
that's what Barbara Weaver Smith calls it in The Whale Hunters.
Okay. We'll call it the buyer's table.
Okay.
The buying committee. That's another reason why the buying committee has gotten larger, is because people realize that the more people there are in the decision making, the more we can make it about the numbers and the facts and the figures. However, all those people that make up both the formal and the informal buying committee have feelings, and they're people. They have prior experiences that they're dragging into this. So their gut you ever try to make a decision by a committee and there's one person that's hell bent on no. It doesn't even make sense, but they're hell bent. That is their gut. That's their primitive brain, or Seth Godin calls it the lizard brain, saying, this does not feel right. I don't like this. Numbers be damned. I mean, that's what's happening. So yeah, we don't even process language or numbers or have rational decision-making capabilities where decisions are made, essentially.
Well, and the buying committee has all sorts of political dynamics inside of it, just like you said. So it just may be like a more complex being that you're dealing with, but it's still all, I think you're right. I think it's still all emotionally driven. Well, this makes me feel like I want to get really creative about, when you think about the big deals that you've won,
Mm-hmm.
you can bring it almost every single time. You can bring it down to there. At some point, there was a connection made that you became important.
Yes, absolutely. Whether, and why did you become important? And, why did they like you, or why did they respect you? I mean, I can actually pinpoint some of my biggest deals to a moment of conflict and respect that was earned. And then
tell me a conflict and respect story.
Well, like I've talked about that large regional banking system, right?
Yeah.
Where, this guy was trying to chew me up and spit me out, but I knew that their vendor had closed the doors and they were sitting on a pile of orders that weren't filled. And he kept pushing back. And I just finally said, great. You know what? Obviously, you know best, and I cannot compete with what you think you're getting. So go ahead and stick with your current vendor. And I was ready to walk away. In that moment, it changed everything. Had I kowtowed and went negotiating on price, we never would have had business. It wouldn't have lasted long and been a nightmare. But that was a pivotal moment of conflict and respect, to where, I don't know if it was a test or if it was just, wow, I like this girl, whatever. But there are a lot of moments like that. I can think of several. I know that we're at a pivotal moment in the decision-making process where we had conflict and then respect, and then it was smoother sailing after that.
I've been telling you about this book that I'm reading, the Never Split the Difference by Chris Voss. It's about negotiation. And he talks about that exact same thing. And he's like, a lot of salespeople are really worried about conflict. He's like, but what conflict does is it brings out the truth, and it provides resolution. And when salespeople are good, I have never had, I'm not a confrontational person. Like, I don't need to come butt heads with you. Like, there are some people that sell that way, and it's totally fine the way they do it. But that moment of conflict is where there is massive financial opportunity if you can be in that moment with that other person. That's where the gold absolutely is. And I don't know how you drive up conflict, but almost every big deal that I can ever think of had that moment. Ooh.
Well, if so it's like we talked about with negotiation. It's, how can we make this win-win? And oftentimes, you've got your agenda, buyers got their agenda. And so, whether it's conflict over price or terms or scope or whatever, and there's going to be a moment where either, someone's going to advance, right? If you can advance together, that's the goal. But, sometimes it has to come to a head like that. Like, when one of my favorite clients, we walked through the presentation of the proposal and the scope and everything, and he got to the end, and I think he just thought, I need to negotiate. It's like, okay, well, let's negotiate. And I just said, I don't negotiate price. And I shut up, and he said, well, okay. And he signed, that was a pivotal moment. So I think that if you're a seller, think back to places of conflict, not huge knockdown drag out things, but
right,
conflict or places, moments in the sales process of some of your most successful relationships, and think about at what point did your relationship change?
Yeah.
You built a bridge and started talking about personal things. Was it when you proved your value, or that you had some sort of altruistic gift to someone, that you did something that was selfless? Or you look for those places, because that is where we start building those relationships that last, not just through one sale, but the relationships that last to get into someone's Monkeysphere.
Yeah. And, as you're saying it, one of them, well, we've already talked about the one where the procurement guy said, you need to do this because your competitors are doing it. I'm like, but then you'll be working with them, and it just changed everything. Right. But also, it doesn't even have to be these big manufactured moments. I remember I was sitting at a huge technology firm company, and, we were doing our presentation, blah, blah, blah. And the woman checks her phone, like something happened on her phone, a text message or something, right?
Mm-hmm.
And normally, whatever. And I'm like, oh, is there something you need to handle? Do you know? And oh, are we having a bad internet connection?
Yeah.
Are we okay?
Just that one little spot. Go back and
Okay.
talk about the lady at the
Yeah, so you're sitting at the table and you're doing your presentation, you're doing your shtick, you're doing your spiel, right? Which I don't recommend. But anyway, so something happens on her phone, and and I promise you there are moments like this in almost every situation that you're in with somebody. You can be sensitive to what's going on over there. And all I said was, something going on that you need to take care of. Mm-hmm. And she goes, oh my God, you know, like the neighbor, and they have this thing about the dogs and and then now the owner of the house wants to sue, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like something big is happening in her life. Like something big happened over there in your life.
Sorry. That just happened to me. Okay.
Something big happened in your life. What happened in your life? What just happened?
Oh, so my I have a phone number that rings through my computer and all my devices, and that just happened. Sorry.
Well, no, it's so perfect because it's completely distracting.
Yes.
Right? Like you couldn't have heard anything that I was saying, right? And
all
neither
I'm thinking is, oh crap, how do I get this off? Shut down, end, stop.
Well, I don't think that could have happened at a better time, because this happens in every one of your sales meetings. I promise you somebody is checking out somewhere. And if you just are like, there it is again.
Yeah. All right. Okay, so I need to end that. Okay.
So let's see if we can do it again. Like if I say something's happening over in that person's life, then the phone's going to ring again. It's just a demonstration. Mm-hmm. God is on our side. Anyway. And it just keeps coming.
It does. Yes. Well, I shut out that window, so hopefully it will stop. Please stop.
Anyway, the point is, don't try to talk over that stuff because that person is not listening.
No, well, yeah, you have to acknowledge the interruption and say, okay. And oftentimes you can build bridges there, right?
Totally. I mean, we got a 5-digit, donation to our nonprofit and we weren't going anywhere with business with them. Mm-hmm. But it's just like, what's going on over there? All of a sudden she's like, oh my God, we got to figure out a way we're not going to be able to do business, but we got to figure out a way to get money to your foundation. I'm like, okay. Okay.
Right. Because you recognize that we're all humans and, that it matters to me that you're having a crisis. Right. So right. I'm going to acknowledge that. Now, if someone's just, diddling on their phone because they don't care, I will stop talking. Right. And say, have you ever done that? Like someone's checked out in the meeting. Do you ever stop the meeting?
Totally.
Do you have any stories?
Well, that's a good, I have a bunch of stories. I have so many stories, but yeah, I mean, and you can smile and be quiet. Mm-hmm. But yeah, no, my favorite story is the decision maker, like the one that wasn't going to be my day to day, but the one who was up here and could kill the whole thing, right, was falling asleep. I think it was the CFO falling asleep in the meeting. And I was giving an example and I was like, so Phil, blah, 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 and I brought him into the conversation and I gave him enough time. This is another thing. You got to be really great with people. So, Phil, when you have a situation where, like in this particular case, blah, 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 and I just kind of laid it out again, what he was falling asleep during, what's your approach to that back in the conversation? Mm-hmm. What's your approach?
Well, I need t-shirts that I need to make t-shirts that say, not afraid to make things awkward. Because not only do I not accidentally spend my time, I don't want to waste my time either. And right. So I usually will call them out and say, you know what, if now's not a good time, I understand that, but I would like for you to tell me if never is going to be a good time either. So we can just not waste anybody else's time.
That is so good.
I think I've never had anyone say never is going to be a good time. I can say, you know, they'll apologize. They'll say, I'm not the right person or whatever. I mean, there's a reason why you're there in a meeting with someone who's not paying attention. I've probably not done something right if that person doesn't care enough to pay attention in the meeting. Either, you know, they're there because someone else brought them there and they did a crappy job selling or whatever it is. If they're not paying attention, there's a reason for that. And so by confronting it right then and there, I usually am able to understand what my next steps are, how do I make things better, or to cut my losses.
Cut your losses. I love that. You know, just cut your losses.
Yeah.
Or, you know, or ask questions like, you know, somebody kind of goes silent and you're like, did I just hit a nerve?
Mm-hmm.
Or seems like that might just be the deal breaker right there that we just ran into. Do you know? And when you acknowledge it, there all of a sudden, oh my God, I had one presentation that was just going like the worst, right? It's like, nah. I've been selling to these people and they're like, they totally want to be on board. And then, you know, senior management swoops in for the final presentation and it is going badly. And, you know, a lot of times when you're in that position as a salesperson, you're like, I got this nailed, you know, they've already,
right.
But I was like, okay, I just need to stop right now in this meeting because I think that something just went, you know, that wasn't expected, just happened. And did we hit a deal breaker? And one of the women said, well, does your product do this? And, you know, I'm like, no, I'm so sorry if that was the expectation. Like, right. I hope I've never said that, but no, it absolutely doesn't. It's not on the roadmap. It's not coming. Should I give you back 15 minutes of your day now? And they're like, yeah, I think, you know, that's that. And I got a phone call within 5 minutes from my buyer and said, I am so sorry. We got off the phone and we dealt with like, what the hell was that? Mm-hmm. And then they signed the contract that day.
Right.
And I was sure the deal was dead. Do you know?
Yeah. I think that goes to speak to, you know, not being single threaded and knowing the currency of everyone who's in the room.
Yeah.
You know, because if that's so important, if you have to present to different levels, people in the buying committee, they've all got different currencies. They all have different reasons and ways they're going to evaluate making a decision. They all have different outcomes. They have different roles. You know, stakeholders have different risk involved. And sometimes if you don't know how to speak to those different ones, you may if it didn't matter to the people actually using it, that it didn't have this feature, like they just wrote you off, but they're like, no, that doesn't matter. So right. Yeah, that's really important.
All right. We need to make t-shirts. Selling the SellOut Show t-shirts that say, I'm not afraid to make things awkward. On the back, it says, because I'm always sold out.
There you go. I love that.
I think we should wrap it up on that.
Yeah, I think so too. So we will maybe post a link in the description to the Monkeysphere article, which links to the crack article or something. You know, I think if you were to look at a takeaway from this, please think about, if you're going to matter to someone, you have to truly build a relationship, because you got to displace someone else that matters. You know?
You've got to roller derby somebody out of their Monkeysphere.
Exactly. Yeah.
Don't be afraid to throw an elbow. Whatever it takes to get in their Monkeysphere.
Yes. Well, there are people who are, think about your competitors. Are your competitors really in their Monkeysphere? Do they really matter? Do they matter to their customer? Do the customer matter to them? Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. No. The answer is no, not always.
Brilliant stuff. So in that note, stop hoping
and start selling.
Okay. Bye.
Bye, everyone.